While everyone is focused on potential trades, free agents, and training camp competition, the Dolphins are quietly making moves that could have a big impact on the roster for the season. Rookie contracts are being signed, salary cap space is shifting, new players are arriving, and there are still important unanswered questions. But here's what really caught my attention. What if these moves are just the beginning? What if Miami isn't finished yet? Because when you look at the available salary cap space, the players still on the market, and some of the contractual situations developing within the organization, it's very clear that the Dolphins still have options. And if the front office sees an opportunity to improve this team, they may be in a position to act. Before we get into the details, make sure you've already clicked the like button if you believe the Miami Dolphins are on the right track. Let's show our support for this team at this crucial stage of the preseason. And I want to hear the opinions of optimistic Dolphins fans today. Leave this comment right now. Go Dolphins! The future is brighter than people think. Let's fill the comments section with positivity and show everyone that Dolphins Nation still believes in the future of this team. Now, my personal opinion on this situation is simple. I really like what I'm seeing. No, these aren't the kind of moves that dominate national sports programs. No, they aren't generating sensational headlines. But organizations with championship potential are usually built with smart decisions, patience, roster management, and preparation well before the start of the regular season. Rookie signings are progressing, the team still has financial flexibility, and there doesn't seem to be panic on the part of management. To me, that's a good sign. It shows a team that has a plan, instead of a team that makes desperate decisions. But the biggest question remains. Are the Dolphins quietly preparing for another major change before the start of the season? Because if they are, what happens next could surprise many people. Let's analyze everything we know so far. I'm curious to see how many loyal Dolphins fans are watching today because the topic we're discussing could create a lot of debate among the fan base. Some fans will see these developments as positive signs. Others may believe the team still has important work left to do. Now let's get straight into the story. One of the biggest developments is that the Dolphins have officially started signing members of their rookie class. According to the information available, 10 of the 13 draft picks have already agreed to contracts, leaving only 3 players still waiting to finalize their deals. The list of signed rookies includes Chris Bell, DJ Campbell, Kevin Coleman Jr., Caleb Douglas, Will Kazik, Max Llewellyn, Kyle Lewis, Trey Moore, Jacob Rodriguez, and Michael Taff. At first glance, that may seem like a routine offseason update, but there is a much bigger financial picture attached to these signings. The discussion surrounding Miami's salary cap situation continues to evolve. The current estimate suggests that signing the rookie class will require approximately $9.8 million. Once all rookie contracts are officially accounted for, the organization will gain a much clearer understanding of both its current financial flexibility and how future cap numbers will look moving forward. And this is where things start becoming interesting. The Dolphins currently sit with approximately $21.1 million in available cap space following the post-June 1 financial adjustments. After accounting for rookie contracts, projections suggest Miami could still have roughly $11.3 million available to work with. That number has naturally led to speculation about whether another move could be coming before the regular season arrives. The question isn't whether Miami can still make additions. The question is whether Miami wants to, because another roster move has already happened. The Dolphins recently signed wide receiver Jaylen while waiving Jordan Colbert following a failed physical designation. The reaction to the move has been mixed, but the information presented suggests there is little reason for fans to view this signing as a major development at this stage. When looking at Reagor's production throughout his professional career, the numbers have not been overwhelming. His highest receiving total came during his first season, and he has never surpassed 400 receiving yards in a single year. Because of that, there appears to be a strong belief that this move should be viewed primarily through the lens of offseason roster management rather than as a major addition expected to transform the offense. In fact, the argument being made is that Reagor may simply serve as additional depth during camp activities. The logic is straightforward. Training camps place enormous physical demands on players. Receivers are constantly running routes. Defensive backs are constantly covering. Injuries, fatigue, cramps, and other physical issues naturally occur during these periods. Because of that, teams often bring in extra bodies to absorb practice repetitions and help preserve the health of players already expected to make the final roster. That explanation has led many observers to categorize the move as a typical camp addition rather than a roster-changing acquisition. But while the Reagor signing has generated conversation, another topic may actually be more important. Cap space. Specifically, what Miami might do with the money it still has available. There's still ongoing discussion regarding whether the Dolphins could pursue veteran help before the season begins. Some attention has reportedly been directed toward pass rush assistance, while questions continue to surface regarding whether additional roster improvements could still be explored. The available cap space creates possibilities, but the front office must determine how aggressively it wants to operate. And that leads directly into one of the most fascinating discussions currently surrounding the team. Could Miami create even more cap space through a trade? According to the analysis presented, there are very few realistic candidates capable of generating meaningful financial relief. One player whose name surfaced during that discussion was Jordan Brooks. The reasoning is entirely financial. A potential move involving Brooks could reportedly create significant cap flexibility compared to other options currently available on the roster. However, the situation is not nearly as simple as it sounds, because there is also a strong belief that Miami would prefer to keep Brooks rather than move him. The possibility of a contract extension remains part of the conversation, and an extension could potentially help lower future cap charges while allowing the team to retain a player viewed as an important piece of the defensive unit. That creates an interesting dilemma. Do you preserve continuity and keep an important contributor? Or do you explore options that could create additional financial flexibility? At this point, there does not appear to be a clear answer. What we do know is that Miami continues working through rookie contracts, evaluating depth additions, managing cap space, and preparing for the next phase of offseason activities. And with minicamp continuing, attention is already beginning to shift toward player performances and whether the offense or defense will gain momentum as preparations continue. The atmosphere around the Dolphins may seem calm on the surface, but there are several important decisions still waiting to be made. Rookie contracts are nearing completion. Financial flexibility remains available. Additional roster moves cannot be ruled out. And questions surrounding future cap management continue to generate discussion throughout the fan base. What makes this story even more interesting is that while many fans are focusing on the players who have already been signed, there are still 3 members of the Dolphins draft class who have not finalized their contracts yet. And despite some concerns that naturally appear whenever unsigned draft picks remain on the board, the overall feeling surrounding the situation appears calm. The reason is simple. A large number of first-round selections across the league are still waiting to sign as well. In other words, Miami is not dealing with a unique problem. This appears to be part of a much larger league-wide process that is still playing out. That is important because every time contract negotiations drag on, fans immediately start wondering if there is some hidden issue behind the scenes. At least based on the information available, there is no indication of panic. In fact, one of the most encouraging developments mentioned was the signing of Jacob Rodriguez. There was no prolonged standoff, no major contract dispute, and no signs of unnecessary drama. For a team trying to establish stability and move efficiently through the offseason, those details matter. Every completed contract allows the organization to focus more attention on football rather than paperwork. And speaking of stability, there is another topic that deserves attention. The way Miami appears to be managing its salary cap moving forward. The discussion highlighted confidence in how the front office is approaching contracts and future financial planning. Rather than aggressively pushing the market higher on every extension, they're